I spoke at length about how some amplifiers can work sort of as AVR alternatives. They're not going to satisfy your cinephile needs perfectly, but they are meant for someone who wants a great stereo amplifier, an amp designed to be musical, but that can carry a lot of weight and presence like AVR. And ladies and gentlemen, look no further. This is the first amp that I can say is the perfect mix between an integrated amplifier and an AVR. And I love that. Maybe I haven't shown it on this channel, but I am a big movie guy and I love AVRs, Blu-ray players, and generally a well-filmed and recorded movie. So this idea from Marantz that it will give us two-channel AVR receiver was just crazy to me and made me really happy. But it also made me worry a little bit from perspective of sound quality. This amp, while not expensive, is not cheap either. It costs around 1000 euros, and in this price range you can buy a decent integrated amplifier or a decent AVR. And to me, the major question that needs to be answered is how well this competes with these two. How much do you gain and how much do you lose? Let's first talk about the greatest thing this amp provides, and that is versatility and features. Honestly, Marantz pulled a rabbit out of hat here. There is almost everything and more here. But you know what is the first thing I'm going to mention? Yep, those 6 HDMI inputs and one more for 8K eARC. While this is a super common thing in AVRs, it's a pretty rare thing in integrated amplifiers, almost unique. And it opens so many possibilities with this amp. Now you can connect to your TV, stream and watch 4K movies, and listen to music as well. It's an easy connection if you want to stream 16 and 24-bit music. Okay, the TV as a streamer is not the best choice, but it does open a lot of doors. Also, a direct connection to Blu-ray players is where I get the most joy, and also from PlayStation 5. This amp can process all the HDR formats from Dolby Vision to HDR10+, and it comes with a Dolby Vision to enhance your viewing and listening experience. It doesn't have the latest and the greatest technologies, but it's good to have all of this in this one package. And the versatility doesn't end there. This amp can work as a pure preamplifier, borrowing strength from different amps. It has 2 subwoofer outputs, which again pleases your cinephile needs. Also, it has a phono input, optical, coaxial, RCA and USB. All you need, maybe except a balanced input, to satisfy your audiophile needs. It can connect to a large variety of different sources as well. There's also an A/B switcher to connect to 2 different pairs of speakers. And how can I forget about HIOS? Besides everything I've said here, this amp comes with an attached streamer. HIOS, love it or hate it, is a very decently equipped streamer with all the goodies from Spotify, Deezer, Tidal to listen to music in high quality. This kind of versatility and feature-rich approach is unheard of, and the fact that you get it all for 1000 euros, that is just nuts. I will try to separate this amp's quality for audiophiles and cinephiles, what they can expect and what they get with this amp. Audiophile-wise, if you enjoy the sound of Marantz, then you should not be disappointed here, to be honest. The sound is warm, with a definite emphasis on upper bass and lower mids. Especially in those lower mids, the sound is very rounded, like a really rounded. There are no edges or bite, just this beautiful massive sound that hugs you like a blanket, with its size and presence. And as all of that is being said, you know every music genre that benefits from having a bass with more weight will be happy with how sprawling it sounds. For example, synth bass, when it builds to create a textures and atmosphere, will sound amazing. Also, the lower octaves of that cello or bass guitar, some kicks are going to have authority and command. This can also very well translate to mids having this creamy and smooth delivery. Nothing is rushed with enough emphasis to open and deliver. This means that voices have weight and the soundstage opens up well enough. I think how Marantz is doing things is not to extract as much as information or to organize sound in a way that separates the most. It is to give size and definition to instruments, and that also applies in the mids. That size and definition can at first make the soundstage seems big, but unfortunately it's only large with not enough information in mids or treble to create that great separation and placement of instruments on the soundstage. But what you hear has enough definition and vocals can sound smooth and hefty, which can really be a great plus for long listening sessions. Just don't expect a lot of separation, textures, or information around mids and treble. As with the mids, the treble is certainly not the highlight of this amp, but it does provide a certain amount of definition. But you're not getting like Marantz to hear the utmost details and information. It is a sacrifice done to allow size, definition and impact in this price range. It has to veil the other parts of the dynamic scale a little bit. Separation and resolving in the top end are there to have a shape and definition, which means you will hear percussions, you will hear strings extending, and it will do a good job in presenting that information to the listener. But this is not the best you can find in €1,000 amps. It will not separate greatly, nor is there the utmost detail presented there. It veils a bit of the background, it veils a bit of information, but it has a great scope and size. But you might appreciate that more than the utmost information, as it will create a smooth, big sound that you can listen to for hours and hours on end. It is in reality a Marantz sound, love it or hate it. It's a great sound, it is a sound that is a pleasure to listen to on a long runs. It is a sound that will fill the room, where jumping to other amps the sound will seem thin in comparison. It just lacks some power in separation and clearing space for that information. But that might not be a deal breaker for the most people, maybe not even for you, especially those buying amps in this price range. It is a great sound that I think many people will love. Now, Cinephiles are, in my opinion, getting the short stick in this sonic distribution of powers. While even thinking that the stereo amp can work as an AVR is fantastic, I think it cannot compare to AVRs in this price range. There is just something about how AVRs create sound objects in space to determine their position. It's not that this amp doesn't do that, but I could easily track footprints, people walking or chatting in the background, drops of water or items falling on the floor. It could separate more. If you are really want something else, superb cinema style, maybe consider buying not Stereo 70 but Cinema 70 from Marantz. Also, if this amp somehow magically could attach a central speaker, it could actually become a killer value. The reason for that, besides the objects in spatial effects creation, is that central speakers are to me the best thing every AVR could use and connect. It just makes such a big difference when there is a clarity of speech, which is, when watching movies, to me at least, the most important part. And a 2.0 system or 2.1 system cannot make voices as clear as 3.1 system. Voices will always have to fight with the rest of the sounds, and knowing how emphasized bass and mids are in a cinematic sound, it cannot sound as crisp and clear as with a 3.1 system. But to not sound like too negative, you do get a cinematic sound out of this amp. You do get that grand scope, that thump that present. Sound effects used to describe a position of sound, a properties of sound, and textures are there. Scraping on the wall, swords hitting swords will resonate and will make you giddy, and you are happy with it. The question of whether this is a better than a soundbar will always depend on which one and what speakers you have. I guess some top-of-the-line soundbars are going to give you a more expensive soundstage. They will give you a surround properties, even Atmos properties. If that is something you want, then soundbars kill this amp. Even some top-of-the-line soundbars will give you more defined sound with more items separated and created in space. More cinematic experience, let's call it like that. But soundbars are awful for listening to music, and unless you invest around 800 to 1000 euros in a soundbar, you will not get significant improvements compared to this amp with a decent speakers and a subwoofer, except for surround properties which are sadly non-existent in this amp. As you are looking for Marantz Stereo 70, maybe you are also looking at, I don't know, Marantz 40n. To me, the Model 40n is better, and what a surprise that is for an amp that costs 1,400 euros more. Yes, it is much more expensive and you get a more defined and better streamer with sound that is a far more refined in top end than Stereo 70. It is an amp that competes in this price range with other amps, as it tries to have the Marantz sound, but with extracting far more information in mids and treble. So you get a big sound, a large beautiful bass with attack, but also a lot of textures and details in mids and treble. You will lose all the cinema goodies, but it is much more expensive. In my opinion, Stereo 70 is a much better value, as the jump in audio quality is not so dramatic to justify such a big price increase. But that is atypical for all hi-fi components when they cross the 2000 euro threshold. If you're not certain what type of amp you really need, save your money, buy Stereo 70 and immerse yourself in cinema and audiophile listenings, and on the road decide how and when you will upgrade. As a true alternative to this amp, there is none. Truly there is none. And I believe this amp is for someone who is not certain if they will benefit from getting an integrated amp or an AVR. And this amp giving value to both of these markets is spectacular. As a listener, you will have this amp and enjoy all the great goodies it offers, and down the road you will consider if upgrading to a better AVR or integrated amp is in order, and where you should actually push your hard-earned cash. And I think this is where this amp really shines. Yes, it has sound which is a very good, I mean really good at this price level, but it has all the features you could ever want from a stereo amp. It is a super versatile, has a good streamer and a decent treble, has a rounded, pleasant sound that is easy to listen to. It has this HDMI which makes it possible to act as an AVR and gives you the options to connect TVs, Blu-rays, PlayStation 5 and other HDMI equipped units. You will not get a better and more versatile amp in this price range. The sound is great for the price and for what it is, but it is the versatility that gets you here. The numbers of options and features makes it a truly amazing amp, and one that I would wholeheartedly recommend to anyone who wants to have a feature-rich and versatile amp in their home. And me, having the luxury to hear all the new Marantz models, I can easily say this is the best amp in their lineup. It's not that I consider this amp to be the best amp overall, but as for value, there is no rival to this amp in how much it gives for the money tasks. There are, in my opinion, some integrated amps that are better in this price range, like offering a bit more clarity, a bit more information in treble and mids, a bit larger soundstage. but this is just a bit better sonically. But the feature and usability wise, it kills all these other amps. It is that much better than them. So I highly recommend this amp. You will get Audiophile and Cinephile sonic capabilities and a beautiful, warm and smooth sound with a lots of inputs, outputs, and that amazing HDMI and eARC HDMI. Just a fantastic win for Marantz and a great experiment on their side, which I hope will end up as a success. Hope you enjoyed this review, and if you want to support me, please like, subscribe, or donate via Patreon if you can. Keep daydreaming and see you in the next video. Bye!